What's up, Blue Blood fans, and welcome to another edition of Blue Blood TV, the podcast that bleeds Duke and Carolina blue. And well, you know, I'm your host, Hassan Pinto, and I'm joined by my dynamic duo, Will Phelan and Daryl Brunson. All right, fellas, let's dive in. Duke is sitting at 23-3 on top of the ACC. We're here to break it all down, from Duke's dominance to UNC struggles and everything in between. So grab your favorite beverage, put on your team colors, and let's start the Blue Blood Rivalry talk show podcast. Let's go. What's up, gentlemen? How are you doing?
Good, man.
Doing
How are
well,
you
doing
guys?
well.
Yeah. Will, how's it been? How's it been over there in UNC country? Has it been quiet?
You know,
Wow.
it's been all right. That game on Saturday, it was something to be hopeful for. So it's been nice, man.
So you think that Syracuse win was a big win?
I do, because that could have gone the other way, man. Syracuse, that zone that they play is always tough. Historically, we've had issues with it. It's kind of given some teams fits. So it's with the up and down nature of the season. I think that it was nice to see guys step up finally that we've been counting on all season that really haven't been able to step up.
Okay, before we get into it, Will, just kind of give our listeners an idea of how good this UNC team is, because like it seems like they're beating just about everybody in the conference and losing to some people. But how good do you think they are?
I don't know. I know that's not the answer anybody wants to hear. That's not a hot take, but I really don't know if we know how good this team is. I get we're kind of on the downside of the season here, and or the back nine of the season. But man, like it's early. If you look at those games against Kansas and other ranked opponents, we were able to play pretty well, and we've got some wins that we're playing a lot of close games too. So I think we have 10 one possession games, maybe 11 one possession games this season. So it's one of those, man, where I don't know if we really know how good this team is.
Okay. Hey, Daryl, what's up? How is it over there in Durham, man?
It's cold, Hassan. It's cold, and I'm bunkering down, preparing for this wintry weather that we're about to receive. So,
Uh,
yeah.
Daryl, I am getting ready to get out of town, put on my little shorts, and hit South Beach for 5 days. I've got a beach day, a pool day, and a yacht day lined up over this weekend starting tomorrow morning. So I'm going to feel for you. I'm really going to feel for you as the snow rolls in.
Yeah, I've been contemplating how I could sneak into one of your carry-ons.
If I could sneak you on, I would sneak you on, buddy. All
I
right.
appreciate it.
Well, how's Duke doing, Daryl? Are you feeling good?
Hey, Duke's beating a bunch of unranked teams right now, Hassan. Aside from, I hate that I missed last pod, but aside from the Clemson loss against a veteran Clemson team, where of course, you're going to see some young guys struggle against some vets, and I think that hiccup hopefully woke this Duke team up, because these last few games they've been beating the crap out of teams, Stanford, Virginia, and Cal. A little bit of West Coast love, Cali love, beating up on a couple Cal teams, and then coming back this way to the East Coast and beating up on Virginia. Duke's looking really good right now, but we've talked about it all year. The level of competition isn't stiff, and so I'm really interested to see how well they do against Illinois here coming up.
All right, so let's start digging in, Daryl. Duke is 20-3, leading the ACC. Is this season 23 great record? Lots of unranked opponents. They've beaten at 20-3. But is this exceeding, meeting, or falling short of season expectations? And why? I want why you believe it's exceeding, meeting, or falling short.
I think right now I believe it's pretty much meeting the expectations of what most people thought was going to happen. I called for an undefeated season. It's not meeting that, obviously, but I think overall at 23-3. beating a few ranked teams so far this season, a really, really, really good Auburn team, losing to Kansas, losing to Kentucky, and like I said, losing to a veteran Clemson team. A few losses are going to happen in the season, man. I mean, it's bound to happen, right? We're preparing for March, we're preparing for early April. But I think that overall, this Duke team so far has been everything that it was hyped up to be.
So you think you're exceeding or meeting the hype? Which one?
I think meeting right now. I think ultimately the hype is a national championship, right? So if this team wins the rest of their games, and we'll say they're 28-3 for the regular season, and they go win the ACC championship, but they lose the national championship, they didn't meet expectations, right? But I think if they can finish the season out well, even if they lose to Illinois here coming up on Saturday, I think if they win the ACC tourney and they win the national championship, this was an incredible season where they met expectations. I wouldn't even say exceeded. I don't know that that's possible. I think an undefeated season would be the only way to have exceeded the expectation this year. But I think winning a natty is what the expectation is. So it's TBD, I guess, at this point. But so far, so good.
Okay, Will, UNC, a roller coaster season. Is this team meeting, exceeding, or falling short of preseason expectation? And please tell our fans what you thought this team would be in the preseason and why.
So preseason, I thought we had the talent to make an Elite Eight run with how excited we were about some of these transfers coming in. Cade Tyson in particular was a guy we struggled consistently shooting threes last season. And he's a career 46% 3-point shooter, and the guy has struggled to even find a footing coming off the bench. I think he's averaging 3-4 minutes a game. So I definitely thought that, like a lot of the other Tar Heels, with RJ coming back and with Withers coming back and Jalen Washington and Ian Jackson and Drake Powell coming in, I thought that we'd be an Elite Eight team. So it's one of those. I don't know if it was an unrealistic expectation necessarily, but we definitely haven't lived up to that. We're kind of on the outside of the bubble looking in right now. I just think that this team is they're too small, like you and I have talked about all season long. And I don't know if it's that they're not living up to the expectations, which they're clearly not, but they're just, I mean, the talent's just not there, especially when you take into consideration a guy like Zayden High, who got kicked off the team 2 weeks before the season was supposed to start, and they were counting on him to add some size and some depth in the middle. So I think that this team is just kind of doing the best with what they've got at this point.
Okay, well, I actually think this team is meeting expectations. You go back to our first pod, we're in pod 14 of this 24-25 season. And my preseason analysis was the team is too short to have guards that are too short, and they're just too short, right? So I think that was my analysis. So this is what I was expecting, because Elliot Cadeau is a good point guard if set up properly. I think this Carolina team is a 5 and a 4 away from being able to really compete. You guys really need some center play, and you need a stretch forward, and you have neither. So
you thought that this team would be 6 in the ACC though?
Yeah, I did. I just thought they were too small. I mean, I thought it was a horrible setup. I looked at the team, and just from a size factor, I just didn't think you could do it with a 6-foot point guard. And when they say he's 6 foot, he's probably 5'11" with his hair, and a 6'1" shooting guard, and no center play. I just felt like the setup was wrong. Now, Elliot Cadeau, I've been down on him, but after further analysis, I think Elliot Cadeau can be really successful if set up properly with the tools that he needs to be successful. And I didn't think he had them.
So I think a guy like Elliot Cadeau benefits from he benefit drastically last year from having an Armando Bacot inside, where you can get the ball inside and work inside out. I think that a guy like Elliot Cadeau and even RJ Davis to an extent, I mean, if you look at that guy was a lock to put up 20 points a game last season. And this season is averaging 14 and a half. So, I mean, it's 14 and a half is still a good number, but nowhere near the expectation where we thought he'd be. I do think that I feel like, I mean, you and I talked about the athleticism all season long, and Carolina is still, we out rebounded Duke in that game, and we talked about how Duke's one of the biggest teams in the country. And if you
The
look at
biggest team, Will. The
are
biggest.
okay, so they're the biggest team, and we still out rebounded them by 4, and still lost. I mean, we were down by what 30 in the second half. Um, so it's not that
And just a
this
few more
team,
rebounds away from being, closer.
yeah, the talent's there though. I mean, if you look at it, we're third in the ACC in scoring behind SMU and Duke in points per game, and then if you look at defensive effort, we're fourth. We're holding teams to shooting 42%. So the talent's there. And I think that's the most frustrating thing is with how many we've played 12 one possession games. We've had 12 games where in the last 5 minutes the game was either way by one possession. So I think if you take away a few of these scoring lulls that for whatever reason we just forget to play basketball for 3 or 4 minutes in the second half at stretches of times, this team is, you could add another 3 or 4 wins to the column, and then we wouldn't be on the outside looking in. We'd be, I mean, you're still sitting at a 7, 8, 9 seed, but that's better than kind of not being in at all. So I think that to me is the most frustrating point about it is that we still have the, I mean, with how soft our schedule is down the stretch, we could win ouch south of the Duke game and make a run in the ACC tournament. And we're right back there, and we finish in the top 4 in the conference. So,
Well, the problem is the players are good, but they're not set up properly. And you've got 3 guys the size of point guards. You have
yeah,
Trimble, you got Cadeau, and you got RJ. They're
yeah,
they're point guard size, right? And they're
yeah,
playing the 1, 2, and the 3, right? And against the elite teams, you're just not going to be successful when you've got to shoot over a guy 6'7", right? And RJ, when he had the inside outside situation where they could dump the ball inside, draw the double, kick it out, and he got some space, he was going to be very successful. In this scenario, it's like, okay, well, dump it in. We'll 1v1 him. We'll leave Cadeau open and we'll double down on RJ, right? And then we'll leave Withers open in the corner, and maybe he makes it, maybe he doesn't make it, right? That's the problem. It's
yeah.
it's not a good setup. So Will, let me just come back to you.
Okay.
Are there any surprises, disappointments in this season? And let's start on a good note. What are you surprised? What are you happy, if anything, about this season?
I mean, disappointments is obviously not having a guy like Zayden High, who again had some disciplinary issues and got kicked off the team 2 weeks before the season. Because if it had happened earlier, that could have been one of those things you might have been able to find a replacement in the portal or recruiting wise or whatever for him. So I feel like the way that honestly it's the misses for me on the transfer portal misses that it seems like have come kind of an every other year thing with Hubert, where again you get the Cade Tysons. Van Allen Lubin was supposed to be this guy who was gonna kind of add some size and some depth, and the guy, he's fine for 8 minutes a game, but he kind of goes quiet the rest of the time. And then Jalen Washington, the lack of development, I think it's just, I think for me, it's the misses on the transfer portal and the lack of size and the development as far as size goes. That's really been the most frustrating thing.
All right, Daryl, how are you?
Well,
You all right,
I'm
Daryl?
doing well. I mean, like I said, man, I'm feeling good about my team. I'm not making a lot of excuses about rebounds and not being down 30. If we got 5 more rebounds, we could be down 25. I'm feeling good, man.
Okay, so 20-3. Give me the goal for this season. And is a national championship in the picture? And can you win out the rest of the season? Talk to me, Daryl.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that this to answer your questions, first, I do think that this Duke team can win out for the rest of the season. Like we talked about, the competition is pretty weak. The Illinois game, like I said, on Saturday is going to be an interesting game. It'll show us a lot about this Duke team and how they've progressed over the course of this year. Most of the games that they played, where they played any type of competition or ranked opponent, was in the first half, first quarter of the season. So to see where they are now going down the stretch with this Illinois matchup, I think is a big game. And it's a big game for this team and their confidence going into the tournament, the ACC tournament and the NCAA tournament. I think they absolutely have to win. It's a must win as far as ACC tournament is concerned because again, as we talked about, the competition in the ACC is subpar this year. And so if this Duke team comes up short in the ACC tournament, I don't know if that's what they need, headed into the NCAA tournament where they're going to see competition of the likes of Auburn, Alabama, that SEC competition that we've talked about being as strong as it has this season. I think national championship though is the goal, and I don't like I said, a Final Four appearance would be nice. Making the final two would be great. I think anything less than a national championship victory this year for John Shire especially would be a letdown. And I think that this will be the most talented Duke team he will ever see. And if he can't do it with this team, it'll have people questioning whether he can do it at all.
So, Daryl, do you think the preparation, the ACC, um, is preparing Duke to be in the fight for the national championship? Do you think this ACC tournament that's coming up? Because I really believe if Duke beats Illinois, I believe they win out the rest of the season, right? Do you think they're like the schedule was tough enough for them to really get battle tested?
Shire did a good job with a non-conference schedule. Again, you can't control the talent in the ACC. John Shire can't control that. What I will say is that I think practices for Duke are probably more important for their tournament run than the ACC schedule. Because I'm sure their second string that they play in practice is more talented than most of the ACC this year. And I think that this team is going to have to find a way to prepare itself aside from these games that they're going to play in the ACC that are meaningful games. I mean, the Duke Carolina game is always a meaningful game, but as far as the competition is concerned and moving forward and NCAA tournament, I don't think the ACC is preparing them for that. And we've seen that all year. So the Illinois game is a huge game so they can see what they look like against pretty good competition. But after that, man, I just think that any loss after that is not a good loss. And I don't think that playing these games is necessarily preparing them for the NCAA tournament.
All right, so let's go back to Duke's offense. It looks super potent. I mean, look at the last couple of games. I mean, Duke versus Virginia, 80-62, Stanford, 106-70, California, 78-57. Um, why is this offense so good? Uh, who is the key to the offensive success? Is there a specific player, a system, a combination of factors? Talk to me, Daryl. What's making this thing go like this?
I think that anybody can shine on any given night is probably one of the biggest things. And that we've talked about how Cooper Flag is the number one pick. You guys have talked about how he does. They create the shot for him every play. They give him the ball and tell him go make a play, tell him to do something. And I can't necessarily disagree with that in every instance, but I think down the stretch this year, so far down the stretch anyway, they've allowed other people to shine. Tyrese Proctor dropped 23 against Stanford. Conca Nipples had these really good big moments against Carolina and against competition again that's not great competition, but in their games they're finding ways to get other guys involved. And Cooper Flag is still doing Cooper Flag things. Cooper Flag just had 19 against Stanford, but Tyrese Proctor, this team is way too talented for Cooper Flag to be the only person to shine. And Tyrese Proctor shining, Conca Nipples shining, Sion James is shining. Malik Brown just suffered an injury, and that's one of my biggest concerns moving forward for the rest of the season is Malik Brown's health. just because I feel like he is their enforcer inside, even though Kamal Malawach is 7'2" and freaking like with a wingspan 8 feet long. But I think that this team is special, man. Even Isaiah Evans, who doesn't get a lot of playing time a lot of times, dropped, I think, 17 this past game. I mean, they have options as far as scoring from the first man to the 10th man on the bench. And I think that this team is going to continue to be going to continue to be the team that they've looked like all year and going to make a late season run here this postseason.
So, do you have the talent to win the whole thing?
Yes.
The answer is yes. Will you win the whole thing? The answer is I don't know. Do I think Isaiah Evans should play a more prominent role or get a role, right? If that's the role is to be a spark, right? And he knows when they need to like spark the game, they got to get Gillis, they got to get Isaiah Evans. They have to give those two players a role that is consistent so that they know when their skills are going to be used. Because I feel like if you can get Isaiah Evans going and comfortable, that's just another tool that you're going to have to shoot from the outside to win a national championship. And I think that John Shire has to figure out how to get Gillis going and how to get Isaiah Evans going. What are your thoughts on that?
To your point, the one thing that does bother me at times is that I feel like there is a lot of talent on that bench, like Isaiah Evans, and it's very inconsistent as far as his minutes are concerned. It's almost sometimes it feels like John Shire is just putting him in the game so he doesn't enter the transfer portal. And then there's some games where he's putting him in the game and telling him, "Hey man, let it fly." And he had 22 minutes this past game, and that's great. Isaiah Evans is a great player. He came out, like I said, scored 17 points, 22 minutes. The game before that, he had half of that. He had 11 minutes and only 2 points, and he only put up 4 shots. And I understand this Duke team is really talented, but the biggest thing that bothers me is sometimes it seems like some of the talent is wasted on the end of the bench, and consistency is key, right? And John Shire's got to find a way to be a little bit more consistent when it comes to players like Mason Gillis, Isaiah Evans, the guys they're going to need down the stretch in the rest of
Agreed.
the course of this year.
And Daryl, I think those two are the key, right? You get Mason Gillis and Isaiah Evans in a championship role, like role meaning knowing what they need to add to this group, and then this team can run downhill. One thing I want before I go back to Will, I want to say about Isaiah Evans is his mannerisms when he does get time is infectious. Like he wants the ball. You can see him like ready for the catch and shoot. And I really appreciate the way it seems like he's dealing with a very complex situation. And Isaiah Evans is a 5-star recruit. I mean, he is not sharp-lived. This guy is a baller.
I 100% agree with all of that, son. 100%.
Daryl, do you think that the lack of consistency with the minutes for those guys off the bench is going to hurt you guys? I mean, God forbid somebody, because this Duke team is one of the most talented we've ever seen, right? I think that's an inarguable fact. But do you think that the lack of consistency is real tough to get going if you're only getting 8 minutes here, 15 minutes there, 6 minutes one night, 20 minutes the next night? And if you guys do come, I mean, you start getting in crunch time down the stretch. You're playing a lot of games in a lot of in not a lot of days. And if guys start getting hurt, do you think that lack of consistency is gonna come back to bite Shire in the ass, or is it going to be one of those where these guys are 5 stars and they just magically figure it out?
Well, I think maybe part of his plan is that he is giving these guys significant minutes some nights, so they're prepared if they ever do have to step up. And I don't know that the inconsistency is something that they love as far as the players are concerned, because everybody wants to play, right? But I think maybe Shire realizes who the cream of the crop as far as his talent is concerned, but also understands that he still has more talent on the bench, and there's going to be nights where he needs them to step up. So he gives them those opportunities in these maybe more lackluster games against your Virginias and your Stanfords, just to give them that real court time to know what they're doing if they ever do have to step on the court in a big moment moving down the stretch of the season.
That's fair. And then Daryl, another question for you real quick is do you think that in the tournament, when you guys aren't going to have the ACC refs removing teams fans from the arena, that you guys are going to struggle?
No comment.
Tell me.
Duke Carolina fans, download Duke Carolina, the Blue Blood Rivalry film on iTunes or Apple TV or wherever you get your VOD downloads.
Hey, Queen, you know you my guy, right? I'm always putting for you. Tonight, when you step on the court, I step on the court too. And we in it.
So 2 games that night. It's the North Carolina game at Duke and the Duke game that's at North Carolina.
When we wake up on game day, there's a knot in my stomach. We've been up since 6 a.m. this morning watching recorded Duke Carolina games.
I watched the Rivers shot
about 15 times.
Yeah. Rivers on his own. Yes, that's the buzzer.
We're here for the Duke game.
And it is 10 hours and 9 minutes until game time.
The Blue Devils win 85-84.
Nothing better than North Carolina and Duke. It is the best rivalry in all of college basketball. Hall of Fame coaches, great players, and usually so much at stake.
And that's it. Carolina has won it.
The fans have as much to do with the rivalry being great as the players and the coaches.
5 hours before game time.
Well, there's no question that the rivalry is there every day in our community.
Can you imagine what it would be like around here if people didn't have it? It would be terrifying.
We are 30 minutes away from tip-off.
It's one of the most exciting events you can be a part of, and I still say it's not the biggest rivalry in college basketball. It's the biggest rivalry in all of sport, bar none.
It's game time!
Prepare for Duke and North Carolina to face off like never before. Blue Blood Rivalry 5K! 5K! Sign up one, sign up all. Students, families, alumni, locals, non-locals, everyone! And you don't even need to be from UNC or Duke, because we have a Party Crasher division. Party Crasher! Come State, Wake, UVA, anyone, and join the fun. Crash their party! But the real battle is between the Blue Devils and the Tar Heels. Before it's settled on the court, it'll be settled on the race course. But there's more. There will be a special basketball dribble division where each participant will travel the race course dribbling a basketball. Dribbling a basketball? Hell yeah! That's cool! So sign up now! Attention all racers, prepare for the event of a lifetime. The race course will most certainly decide our champions.
All right, well, let's talk about UNC. We're going down the stretch. 6 games left to go. NC State tonight. Yep. And then you got Virginia, Florida State. You got Miami, Virginia Tech, and Duke. You will not win the Duke game. Duke is going to win that game.
Yeah, that.
But tonight, I think, is a really important night. Not just for a win and being 16 and 10, right? It's really about pride, right? Like tonight is about pride. Would you agree with that?
I would, and so there's a reason we call it the Blue Blood rivalry, and we haven't added state to it. It's not a rivalry if two teams constantly beat up on their little brothers. So I think if we're going to keep any momentum and any tournament hopes alive, we've got to go out and beat them again. We've already beat them once this season. They're struggling, man. They're not playing very well. So I'm not overly worried. I think we're an 11.5 point favorite right now.
Yeah, but it's NC State. They're going to go to Steam Dome. They're going to play like it. They're going to play like UNC is going to play on March 8th, right?
For sure. But if Vegas is telling us that the two teams are with how inconsistent we've looked, and Vegas is telling us that we're 11.5 points better than State is, I don't think we have anything to be worried about.
So I think here's what we're saying. Tonight is a must win.
Absolutely.
Tonight will put the team in a situation where the season is over, but it becomes even more over, and it becomes more of a dismal situation. So we want UNC to win tonight, and then Virginia at home. Do you think you're going to win Saturday?
I do. I think we're 8-2 or 9-2 at home this season. So we've actually played pretty well at home. I think we'll beat Virginia. I think we'll beat State. Florida State kind of scares me. Leonard Hamilton's always he's a hell of a basketball coach,
and it's in Florida,
and it's at Florida State. So that one could be a trap game. I feel like Monday night after you have State and Virginia. Hopefully the guys will figure it out, but that's the game I'm looking at in the next 5 that gives me any sort of trepidation.
Okay, so Will, I am predicting 18 and 14. So I'm predicting a win tonight, a win versus Virginia,
okay,
a win versus Miami, a loss at Florida State, a loss at Virginia Tech,
okay,
and a loss at Duke, a loss versus Duke. So that's what my predictions are. What do you think about that?
I think we'll end up beating Florida State. I think that game will be closer, but they really haven't looked very good. There's a lot of questions with their program as well. Miami is garbage. Virginia Tech at Virginia Tech will be tough.
Yeah, I don't know if you realize, Will, but when people go over the schedule and they're looking at UNC, they also say, "Yeah, they're garbage. We'll probably take care of them." Too.
Yeah, but I mean, if you look, Miami's bad, man. Miami's down real bad. They fell off after that Cinderella run. So that's one of those where I do get that. Looking at Carolina across the way isn't what it used to be. It doesn't put fear in guys like it used to, but it's still one of those where Miami's so bad that I'm not concerned. It really, we talked about it last week, Haas, where like you just don't know what team is going to show up, and I'm a fan, man. I gotta hope that Ingram having his season high, he had a 19-6, and then he added 3 blocks to go along with the rebounds and the points. So you got to hope that guys like that down the stretch realize that they're playing for their postseason careers, and he may never get to play basketball. He's not going to get to play college basketball ever again. So these guys, it's sad that it took him as long as it did to figure it out. But if he hopefully they can find a footing and some consistency.
Okay, well, so how important is it for UNC to finish a strong season, a strong ACC tournament to build momentum for next year? How important is that?
It's huge, man. It's huge. Nobody's saying that this team is going to make a run anymore. I just think that if we're going to do what we want to do, and Hubert's got to have some leverage, man. He's got the backing of Roy, and a lot of the fans have started to turn on him. I think that if you give him a level playing field, that a lot of these that he hasn't had as far as NIL money goes, and ability to go out and recruit some of these bigger portal guys, I think that if he's going to have a leg to stand on, it's going to be this strong finish. And look what we did without having the money, and here's what we can do if we have them. Imagine what we could do if we did have the money. So I think as far as the direction we want this program to head with the GM and increased budget and everything, I think that how we finish the season is going to be more important than the end of a season in a long time.
All right, Daryl, you still with us? Where are you, Daryl? You still here?
Yeah, hey, I'm telling you, man, I'm over here cooking up some soup, trying to get ready for this weather. I'm just, trying to find a friend.
Dude, I'm down in Wilmington right now. It's 50 degrees. It's a little cold, rainy, but we're good.
That's the good cuddle weather, man. Good cuddle weather.
All right, Daryl. Duke's on a high. They're 21-3. Is that the record?
Right now, we are feeling good, Hassan. We are doing very well this season.
You're probably going to win out. So the next 6 games or 5 games, you're going to probably end up 26-3. Does that sound about right, Daryl?
Yeah, so we're 23-3 right now. 5 more games to go. So 28-3 is probably where we're going to finish. Yes, sir.
Okay, what are the biggest challenges remaining on this schedule? What games are potential trap games? We talk about trap games, right? Trap games is when like you are overly confident that you're going to win. And I think I see one on that schedule. What do you see any?
So obviously we're gearing up for Illinois. I really think that they're going to be ready to play for that. The one trap game that I see, Hassan,
Wake
is Wake
Forest.
Forest.
Wake
Yes, sir.
Forest.
Wake
Wake
Forest.
Forest. Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I would say that would be the trap game if there is a trap game. Obviously, looking ahead, playing in the Dean Dome, wanting to beat the shit out of Carolina once again, and the guys happen to stumble on their way into the Dean Dome when they go. It's in Cameron Indoor, which is probably the biggest benefit. But I still could see them just taking the night off. And I think because it's in Cameron, we'll probably find a way to win it. But if there were going to be a game that we lose the rest of the season, that's the one I'm willing to put my money on.
Yeah, look, Daryl. I think we're not in agreement very often, but I think we are definitely in agreement with that. Okay, so let me ask you a question, Daryl. The intensity, the pressure of the post basketball season, ACC tournament, NCAA tournament. What is the floor for this team in both tournaments? Is it a must that Duke wins the ACC tournament? What if they lose to Clemson? What are your thoughts? And is it a must that they go to the Final Four?
I think if they lose to anybody, it's not good in the ACC tournament. I would say if they lose to Clemson, you start to question whether this team can beat a veteran team at that point that they're going to see a lot of in the NCAA tournament, as we talked about with somebody like Auburn, who they saw earlier in the year, but they saw them in Cameron. I think if they lose to anybody in the ACC tournament, then that's not good. That's not where this team wants the floor to be as far as that's concerned. Now, NCAA, the minimum, at the minimum, Hassan, Final Four. They have got to get to a Final Four. I think if
So
this team makes an Elite Eight appearance and falls up short or comes up short, they are going to be castricized out here, man. It's going to be castration. Castration.
Daryl, I think that's kind of a cop out when you guarantee an undefeated season to just say, yeah, I guess it's our ceiling is the Final Four.
No, I said that was the floor, and I don't think you've been listening this episode. What I said was this team doesn't win a national championship, and it's a disappointment this season.
Okay.
That the undefeated season would have been the only way they could have exceeded everybody's expectation.
Well, I
But the
heard that.
expectation is a natty, and anything less than a natty is going to create a problem. Anything less than a Final Four is going to put John Shire on a very hot seat.
So
So let me be clear: national championship is the expectation.
okay. Do you think that Duke pulls the foot off the gas to give some guys some rest before the juggernaut that is the NCAA tournament? Where if you guys, I mean, I don't know if you've watched any of the SEC teams or anything like that, but right now, if you look at the bracketology, which I get it'll change, you guys, if you won your first game, which you should, you'd play either UConn or Ohio State, and going up against a Hurley who's been there the last 2 years and they've won back-to-back national championships. And then you look at the Tennessees, the Houstons, the Auburns, Kansases, Michigan State, Alabama, all these teams, even Kentucky at this point, Arizona, all these teams that are just as big and more physical than you guys. Do you think that if you do hit a wall against somebody who's playing for a tournament berth in the ACC tournament, you still think that's a disappointment, or do we just chalk it up to them preparing, them looking ahead?
I think it's a huge disappointment. I understand them looking ahead, but I think at this point, you need to have your team ready on a nightly basis, on a daily basis to be able to win the game. And them looking ahead is a sign of maybe things to come. And that to me would be a disappointment in itself that you didn't have a team prepared to win against whoever the opponent is, especially because the opponent isn't good. And I think that if they allow anybody in the ACC to beat them, with as poor as the ACC is this year, we talked about it. You talked about it.
Yeah.
Miami is garbage. Florida
Yeah.
State is trash. Wake Forest is pretty decent. night to night, but UNC
Inconsistent.
is not even close to the level of competition they normally are. Clemson is the only team where they may be able to accept it, but losing to them twice in one season to me would be even a bigger disappointment than losing to UNC right now.
Okay.
So, guys, let me jump in. Like, my biggest concern for Duke is their schedule. Like what did you say? You're going to end up 28-3, Daryl?
Yeah, 28-3.
And I think, and my biggest concern is that it could be a false sense of reality, right? Because even at like number 24, Ole Miss, Ole Miss is 11-3 in their 11. No, I'm sorry. Ole Miss is 19-7, right? And the bulk of their losses have come in an SEC where the conference has like 7 teams in the top 25, right? I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about like the number 23 Kansas teams, the Memphis team, the Maryland team, right? The Kentucky team, Marquette, right? And I am concerned about this Duke team meeting round of 32, round of 16, a St. John's, a Wisconsin, a Texas Tech, right? Because those teams are really good. And I just don't see a lot of these top 25 teams on Duke's schedule unless they've already lost to them, right? Like I don't see a lot of top 25 wins by Duke, right? So that's my biggest concern is I'm just not sure the ACC tournament is going to battle test them. I do think Clemson, a mature team like Clemson, will battle test them, but to get prepared to win a national championship, your conference tournament has to put you through the test. You're playing lots of games back to back, and I'm not sure the ACC tournament is going to do that for Duke. That's my biggest concern.
I do feel like that's a bit unfair though, because four out of their 10 non-conference games, 9 non-conference games were ranked teams. 5 of them at the time the season started were ranked opponents. I think that they put a pretty decent non-conference schedule together. You just can't help the fact that the ACC is the worst that it's been in a long time. Duke can't help that they don't play in the SEC. And their non-conference games it's a pretty decent strength of schedule. No, every game isn't Kansas, Arizona, Kentucky, Auburn, but those are 4 teams I just named that were all on their non-conference schedule. That to me is trying to prepare your team for what the ACC normally is.
And
but
I
they're
feel
not
like the Auburn game outside of Cameron is a loss. Like I feel like look at their loss. I feel that's a loss. Like if you're not, there's a strategic advantage of playing in Cameron Indoor Stadium.
They still played them. They played them.
I feel like you're absolutely correct. They played them. We played Kansas. We played whoever. You guys played whoever. Arizona, whatever. I get it. I just looked at the strength of schedule rankings for the season, and I think where we're stuck with the ACC being trash. I mean, Florida State's still 15-10. Like I get the ACC is not where we expect it to be as lifetime ACC basketball fans, right? Like we've watched some of the best teams in college basketball history. And so we are in no way, shape, or form there. But Duke's strength of schedule is 13th in the country right now, and Carolina's 19th. So these teams, while you look at the Auburn game and the Kansas game and the Alabama game for us and Arizona for you guys and so on and so forth, like I think if you put Auburn, if you guys go against Auburn now on a neutral floor, Auburn beats you 10 out of 10 times. That team is crazy.
10 out of 10 times, Will.
No. Well, what I would say is
10 out of 10
times.
I
don't think that they beat this Duke team 10 out of 10 times.
Right, 9 out of 10.
I think they beat Duke until they don't beat Duke. I think the biggest problem for Duke is not the team. It's the battle testing, right? It's getting in those games against Auburn, on a neutral site so that you understand how
10
to
out of 10
win those
times.
games. That's what I'm saying.
I think that Duke now, their offense, while they have guys that can score, absolutely, we've still heard it time and time again, even recently, where in any you guys haven't played a close game in a while, and I'm not sure that.
But that's what we're saying, Will.
Yeah, no,
battle tested.
Duke being battle tested, it's great that you're going out and you're beating these teams by 25, 30 points, and that's awesome. You can only beat the teams that are lined up in front of you on your schedule. But a team like, I don't know if you saw that Alabama-Auburn game on Saturday. That game was awesome. That game was absolutely fantastic.
I saw Duke and Auburn.
And well, I mean, yeah, if you're stuck in your little 3-foot bubble only watching your team, then yeah, I get it. But these other teams that are battle tested in time and time again, when Duke was playing in a close game and needed a big possession down the stretch, every single time John Shire's been like, oh, we just get the ball to Cooper Flagg. And that's great, but that's great when you can do it against a much lesser ACC opponent. But if you do go up against one of these battle-tested Big Ten, SEC opponents, even the American with UConn and St. John's and whoever else, is these teams are just as big and just as physical, more athletic, whatever. They're going to be able to shut a guy like Cooper Flagg down. And if everybody knows the ball's going somewhere, it's the offensive scheme down the stretch is stale. It's predictable. So that's where I think the Duke. That's where I see Duke running into problems in the tournament.
Yeah, and
the ACC tournament, but
and that's I think where I am at, Daryl. I just think Duke's got an excellent team. Are they capable of winning a national championship? The answer is yes. Do they have the tools? The answer is yes. The thing that Duke needs to do is figure out a role for every good player on that bench, like an Isaiah Evans, a Mason Gillis, and how they're going to utilize them and get those guys to buy into that, right? And you know, and if the role is for Isaiah, if we're down, there are times we're going to need you to shoot us back into the game, right? And Isaiah Evans accepts that role, then I think Duke has a chance to win. The second thing is battle testing, Daryl. I'm not sure this team is battle tested against top 25 opponents, right? Where they have to claw and scratch to win, right? I don't know what it looks like, but I do know what it looks like. The ball in Cooper Flagg's hands against a comparable small forward guarding him, right? With that 6'8", 6'7", 6'8", long arms, right? I want to see him get success before he gets to the tournament. And unfortunately, I'm not going to see that, right? I might
not
see
a lot of that out there, though, Hassan. There's not a lot of that out there. There's not a lot of comparable competition to Cooper Flagg. I'm not saying that nobody's good enough to play against Cooper Flagg, that Duke can't be beat. First of all, the only thing that I really disagree with out of what most of what you all said is 10 out of 10 times that they'd lose to Auburn.
No, I did not say. Will said that. I did not say that.
But that's asinine. So I'm gonna move on. My point is that I hear what you're saying. It's like, what are they gonna do when they have a 6'8" guy that's like Cooper Flagg, long arms? It's like those guys are few and far between. Like there's not a lot of that. Cooper Flagg is very unique in the things that he does, and he has proven that all season. Like we've talked about, he leads Duke in every major statistical category. Yes, the offense is predictable at the end of the game. I will give you that. They lost to Kansas, Kentucky, and Clemson literally the same way on the final possession of their offensive possession every time down the stretch. Give it to Cooper. He comes down. He gets a little bit past the elbow. He slips, he falls, loses the ball. I get it. I'm not denying that. What I will also say is that they were one possession away from winning those games. Therefore, they could still win those games moving forward. It's a lesson. It's a lesson, baby. We learn from it. Right now, what we're trying to figure out, and the biggest question is, will UNC even make the tournament? That's what we need to talk about.
No, that ship is about for UNC is about ending this season on a high note.
Yeah, I think the real conversation here is ending momentum for next year is what we're.
That's the conversation.
Yeah.
That's the conversation. Will and I said.
I genuinely, Haas, I think you would agree with me on this one too. Is that I think a lot of these games are winnable, right? You look at the ACC standings as they stand, and right now, State would have to win a lot of games and get some help to just even make the ACC tournament. So you look at these games, and if we go out and we win these games, then I think Hubert's got a lot of leverage going into the offseason as far as the GM goes and budget goes. And I think you go out and you win these games and you win a couple of games at the ACC tournament, and suddenly we've got some money to play around with and we can start competing, hopefully.
Okay, I got one question to ask you guys. You know, this guy named Rick Pitino is sitting at number 10 at St. John's University.
Yeah.
How is he getting these guys? Like, real quick.
I think Pitino, man, he's got the tradition, the history, but he's also.
But where's the money?
Where's
the money coming from?
Doesn't Pitino threaten to break kneecaps if guys don't do well? Like, isn't that
no?
Honestly, one of the old ball coaches.
I still think those Northeast, those like old, like the Big East, right? Still is in a way the Big East teams. Guys from up north still like to go play for your UConns. They still have talent out there to be able to find in St. John's and even Rutgers. I mean, I think Rutgers probably had to pay their guys, but there's still a little bit of that aura that Big East had, man. Those guys from up north like to play ball the way they like to play ball, and Rick Pitino's the perfect coach for a system like that for the guys that want to play that kind of basketball.
Well, and I think also that if you look at that roster, it's made up large and in part of Northerners, like you said, Daryl, but also like while the rest of the teams are sitting here fighting for 5 stars and whatever, they're taking the 3 and 4 stars, and he's such a good coach that he can. They're also getting these former 4 and 5 star recruits like the Isaiah Evans. I'm just going to use that as an example, that a guy who might transfer away from a program like Duke, and then they come in a year or two later and scoop him up, and he's a good enough coach that he can kind of piece together these former 3, 4, 5 stars who were disgruntled wherever they were before, and then he brings them in and he gets them to mesh and gel and fit a system, and they all look good. So I think that there's a ton of talent, man. He doesn't even have to leave his backyard if he doesn't want to. He could just go to a park in Queens or the Bronx and pull a 7-8 man roster and be fine.
No, that's true. There's a ton of talent in New York. But that's a testament to Rick Pitino. Yeah. I don't think St. John's is dealing with budgets even close to ACC budgets in NIL. So that's a big thing for Rick. But guys, we could talk about this all day, and that wraps up another episode of Blue Blood TV. Huge thanks to Will, Daryl for their insights, because these guys are the best when it comes to the Duke-Carolina rivalry. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, follow us on social media, and we'll return next week to break down all the latest news, games from Durham, Chapel Hill, later from the Blue Bloods. And guys, as we always say, what are we?
We out.
We out. The Blue Blood TV podcast is available on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you get your podcasts. Remember, guys, these shows grow when you share them. So we have a great show here. Share them with all your friends. Make them aware of the Blue Blood TV podcast.